Make sure you've liked and followed the Justin Kinner Show on Facebook. Enter contests, weigh in on the latest sports debates. Plus, you can watch Kinner and Kev weekdays at 3 p.m. Yeah, as if listening to them isn't bad enough. Now you can see them. Reds, Bengals, Browns, Buckeyes, and more. Follow the Justin Kinner Show on Facebook. Don't miss Kinner and Kev, weekdays at 3 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio. Buckeye fans, don't miss Dayton's own Keith Byers every Wednesday at noon on The Keith Byers Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken.
Adds interest. All right, everybody, welcome in. It's the Kinner Kev Show. Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. We are off and rolling. Happy, well, technically Friday, technically Thursday. I'm not really sure. No, you're good. You're good. I have it set for that one because that one's acting kind of.
Oh.
Yeah, my bad.
Sweet.
You fumbled the water, I see.
I didn't spill.
It didn't spill around all the fire hazard,
No, I had the cap on. We're good.
Well, good start. Kinner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio. Happy Thursday, our Friday. Again, last show of the week. Tomorrow, the Cincinnati Reds have a 2 o'clock, 2:20 first pitch game. So that's going to, of course, bump our show tomorrow heading into the weekend. We've had 3 midday games this week. 3.
Wow.
3 midday games that have bumped the show, of course. But we're back and rolling here on a Thursday. We got a lot to dive into. A couple things happened today in the NFL. A couple teams extended some significant wide receivers in the league that have now made me change my stance on, well, maybe the Cincinnati Bengals can get something done with Tee Higgins. Doesn't mean that they will, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Ryan Day has a problem with the perception of the Ohio State Buckeyes, and that's what I want to open up with here today. Ryan Day has a problem with Ohio State regarding the perception of how they put the roster together, okay? So he had a chance to sit down with Bobby Carpenter and Jeremy Birmingham and Austin Ward on the podcast. That's the name of it, and they do it out at Roosters over in Columbus. So Ryan Day was sitting down at the table with those three, and I think Jeremy Birmingham brought it up regarding the fact that there's a lot of people out there that believe that Ohio State bought their roster. Right, they're the Yankees, they're the Dodgers, they're the Lakers. They're those the evil empire teams, right? That's the Ohio State Buckeye way. Before we play Ryan Day's clip, let me ask you: fair or foul the perception that Ohio State bought their roster, if you will?
Foul. There were already guys on the team. This isn't like they were like, all right, dialing up guys that were at Alabama and dialed up dudes who were at Florida State, dialed up dudes who were at Clemson, dialed up dudes at Georgia, and basically overhauled their roster with starters from other teams. They got 2 starters from other programs. Caleb Downs came from Bama as the safety for us, starting free safety for us now, and Junkins from Ole Miss, who's going to be a combo back with Henderson. So like they got a starter and a half. Everybody else was retained. They retained their roster. They got them to come back. So if your NIL collective isn't good enough to entice guys to come back, that's a you problem.
So here's where I disagree with you. Like not you, but like people are getting defensive about this. We didn't buy our roster. We retained it. Well, how do you retain it? Money. So we need to stop. And this is what I'm going to tell you to stop. It's okay. It's okay. That's what college football is. Like they did. And there's no reason why anyone has to sound apologetic or sound like it lessens the value of the success that the program has. If anything, it adds more pressure. If anything, so they get Downs from Alabama, as we talked about. They get Judkins. They don't get those guys. They don't get those level. I mean, those are 2 All-American potential players right there. Yeah. That could have been the guy where they're at. And they come here in a sea of guys over here. So look, Downs comes from Alabama. That's no scrub program, of course. But Saban,
bums, man.
If Saban doesn't leave, I don't know if he actually comes to Ohio State.
No, he doesn't.
Who knows? So Judkins, that was a wild one, and that seemed very transactional, and that's okay. That's
very
okay.
weird for the Junkins. I'm still questioning why Junkins decided to leave Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss stacked their roster. They bought guys too from other programs, starters from other programs. I'm looking for Ole Miss to have one heck of a season. I'm still wondering why Junkins decided to come to the Ohio State University. Glad to have him though. Definitely glad to have him. Just curious, like, dude, you are a star and a starter there. They've gotten even better players around you on offense and defense. What's the problem? Like, why? But hey, come on up to the Buckeyes.
Absolutely. Depth at running back, which has not been a problem for years. Obviously now, definitely not a problem when you have 2 dominant running backs, Trevion Henderson, of course, and Judkins. So the reason I bring this up, and you're right, like this idea that they were a scrub program and they had to go buy the talent to come here to become good. You're right. A lot of the talent, and to be honest, a lot of this is transactional. And if you're not transactional, you're not going to be successful in college football right now. Basketball, same thing. Football's a little bit different. Football, it's easier to retain guys than college basketball, mainly because the idea that college football, you have to be around for at least 3 years. But at the same time, 3 years isn't a long time. Guys get a little antsy. I can get my money and go start somewhere. That's what makes what some of these guys at Ohio State did even more impressive. What makes the guys behind them not leaving. I mean, I was expecting more guys to leave after the spring game, and it really wasn't a mass exodus the way I was expecting in Columbus. So I bring all this up because everyone's getting real defensive, including Mr. Ryan Day himself, including Jeremy Birmingham, including the Buckeye media. No surprise. But take a listen. Here's Ryan Day on the podcast earlier today when asked about the perception that the Ohio State Buckeyes bought their roster.
8 guys make a decision that they came to together for their own individual purposes, and yet people just want to Ohio State bought a roster.
Well, people say a lot about Ohio State, right? I mean, that's just the way it goes. We get a lot of attention.
It just pisses me off.
Yeah, but it's whatever you give attention to. I mean, that's not true. We brought in 6 guys, so I mean, like it's in the offseason, in January, and they were all the fit holes. So if that's the game, we're going to play it and we're going to be aggressive. And the guys on the team are the ones that embraced it. I talked to Travion Henderson before we brought in Quinshon Judkins. I talked to the guys on the team about bringing these pieces in, and they all wanted that. I think that's what is great about Ohio State. And during the recruiting process, I look these recruits in the eye and say, Ohio State's not for everybody.
Love that response.
Perfect response.
The only thing I would like to tweak that I wish he would embrace, and I think coaches will embrace it more as time goes on. Eventually, you're going to get to the point where your coaches are going to look at you and say, duh. There's a price tag. Like all these guys now, especially we just talked with Dan Murphy from ESPN. Mm-hmm. $20 million these schools are going to be allowed to use to pay their student athletes moving forward. So if Ohio State loads up on guys because they're a football school and they load up their football roster with that $20 million mm-hmm. and they pay guys are like this idea. Like I would be mad if Ohio State, and by the way, because that's what was happening the last couple of years, they weren't forking over the NIL money as easily as some of the other programs were. And 3 straight losses to Michigan. Yeah. Does that correlate? I don't know. It kind of seems fishy, right?
Absolutely it does.
And they flip that switch with NIL, now you're getting Judkins, now you're getting Downs. Now guys aren't just bailing to go to the NFL just to go. They're coming back because they have unfinished business. They want to punch Michigan in the mouth. They want to win a national championship, right? So to me, all I'm saying is this isn't a hot take. I think we're making something out of nothing. When people say they bought their roster, if your team's not buying your roster, you're the loser, not Ohio State in this situation, because that's the name of the game right now. And I would be a great Yankee fan. I would be a badass Lakers fan. I would be a great fan. I mean, I'm a Reds fan. I'm a Browns fan who, even when they spend money, Browns is the Browns, right? Like, so I would be an awesome Yankees fan, at least in the 90s and early 2000s, right? Like, I would just be pumping my chest saying, yeah, and like, sorry that you're, hide your money, all poor people around. Like, that would be me. So I guess that's my point, Kev. Like right now, college athletics, whether we like it or not, it's very transactional. If your team's not buying their roster, then you're Clemson, then you're Dabo, then you're Michigan, then you're this, that, and the other. And I would much rather be Ohio State than anyone else at this point.
And another part about, retaining the roster, I mean, you look at some of the guys that could have went to the pros. JT Tuimoloau, he was projected to be a 3rd-round pick.
Yep. Sawyer. A lot of money there. Sorry to interrupt. A lot of money there.
Yeah. Yeah. Jack Sawyer, 4th, 5th-round pick. Denzel Burke, 2nd-round pick. Latham Ransom, 6th-round pick. These are projections. These are where guys were projected to be drafted. Travion Henderson, 5th-round pick. Mecca Ibuka, 2nd-round pick. So, like, the money that they probably got to come back is probably comparable, if not more, than they were going to be getting paid in the NFL this upcoming season. And so, wait, you mean to tell me I get paid the exact same amount, get to run it back with my guys, for the guys that actually do care about it, get my degree, finish on y'all dime? Sounds like a plan to me. Like it's beneficial for all parties involved. And this is Ohio State. This isn't backyard state. This isn't a less than school where, all right, we're not out here competing for conference titles or national titles, and I do have to correct myself. They did bring in Will Howard, who's probably going to be the starting quarterback. They brought in the offensive lineman from Bama as well, who's probably going to be the starting center. So they brought in, 3.5 guys that are going to be starters. And, they brought in like 2 walk-ons too. So like, like this whole perception, like the fan base got open arms. There's no need to be open arms. If you listen to coach's response, that's the perfect response. If you ask me, he's not, he like he said, it's what you give attention to. Sounds like he gave it some attention because he was asked a question and he sees the stuff that's out there, but he's not the one out there getting a microphone in the face, doing the whole thing that he was doing after the Notre Dame game, having a point to say. Like he didn't bring it up. He was asked a question like, well, you're going to ask me, I'm going to tell you. But like the writers and the fans, we can feel like that. We have the right to feel like that. Coaches, I really want them to focus on, the games at hand. And the games at hand are recruiting. The games at hand are getting the new players, because there are a lot of new players on the team ready for the upcoming season and hit the ground running in September.
Kinner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN Dayton's YouTube channel, the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, the iHeartRadio app. The list goes on and on.
We everywhere.
Yeah, the old school Wing AM dial, 1410 Wing AM. We appreciate you hanging out with us here. One of 1410 Wing AM's local hours here, many hours here. Kinner and Kev Show 3 to 6. You have Chatterbox Talking Out Loud was the podcast that we had with Sully years ago. Sorry, but you have the Chatterbox Sports with Off the Bench.
Yeah,
and those guys had a technical difficulty today. They weren't on today.
Oh,
the computer blew up. I was like, oh man, see now you're real radio right there.
Radio guys.
The radio blew up in the middle of their computer blew up in the middle of the show, so it didn't retain any of it.
So another thing about this Ohio State buying a roster, or any other program out there for that matter, it's not just Ohio State thing. It's not just Bama or Georgia or whomever that team out there is. This is how it works. Yeah. This is how it's always worked. Now it's just quote unquote legal to do. I mean, there's programs like SMU who got their whole program destroyed for buying players, back when it was illegal to do that, pulling up with Porsches to give to certain running backs, Eric Dickerson and allegedly, and guys like that. So, this isn't anything new. And let's be real. If you're not spending money, you're not winning. And let's be clear. Some programs do spend money and they still don't win, as was going on what went on at Texas A&M. They spent a whole lot of money. They didn't win. Texas A&M, they're less than, and in the grand scheme of things. Tennessee, they're going back and forth about stuff with the government and the NCAA suing them, and they suing them. And same thing with Virginia. They're spending a lot of money. They haven't hoisted the natty since 1999. So like, it's a lot of schools out there that spend money. It's really all about, all right, you spent the money. What are you going to do with the players? And what are you going to do in the fall? Because all the teams spend money. USC ain't spending money. They're spending a lot of money. They haven't won since Reggie Bush was there. That's a long time ago. Reggie Bush has played in the NFL, won a Super Bowl, retired, started his media career, and got his Heisman Trophy back. That's how long it's been since USC has won. Yeah, like a lot of this stuff has happened. I mean, look at Miami. You hear about their collective all the time. How much money they got? How much money they got to spend? They haven't been relevant since Ohio State beat them in the national championship game all those years ago. Like, I'm just saying, like, all these teams are spending money. At some point, can't be about, oh, you bought a roster. What are you going to do with that roster? What are you going to do with all that talent? Coach Day, what are we going to do with his talent?
Kinner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio. Yeah, I found that wild. And look, the Birmingham, who does a lot of great stuff covering recruiting and stuff, but the outrage. I'm tired of them saying we bought it. Be happy that they bought it. Be happy that they had the money to go get that. Be happy that they had the NIL collective to go get a Will Howard, to go get a Caleb Downs, to get a Judkins, to retain Tua Malau, and to retain those guys, because that's the name of the game moving forward. And I tell you this much, I'd be much more embarrassed if Ohio State lost a lot of guys out on the recruiting trail and couldn't get guys in the transfer portal because they were poor, because they didn't have the funds. So anyone out there who's throwing shade at Ohio State for that, that's like, you don't understand the new college football. You don't understand how college athletics works at this point. And to Ryan Day's point, this idea that they came back just because of money let open the door for the conversation to come back. Culture got them to come back. Say what you want about Ryan Day not being able to beat that cheating team up north. Say what you want about the 3 straight losses to that cheating team up north. Say what you want about not being able to get to the playoff this past year, not winning a national championship yet. Say what you want about all those things. But the one that you can't criticize Ryan Day, and we saw proof of it, wasn't just because of the money. Culture matters a lot. If Judkins, if Will Howard, if Downs, if all the guys on the current roster didn't believe in Ryan Day, they're not coming back. Oh, it was because of the money. You think those fools going to get money elsewhere?
Right.
You think the other programs didn't have that money? They felt the best chance to win a national championship was in Columbus. So all the hate, all the shade, y'all could shove it. There's no need for any of that stuff. I'm glad Ohio State has money. I'm glad that they're spending it. And I'm really excited about that $20 million cap, salary cap, if you will, that they're going to have moving forward once all this stuff really takes off. So they'll be fine. What's wild too, we had the guy, Dan Murphy from ESPN, he said, look, it's not couch cushion money, but it's not money that they're searching for.
Right.
When that time comes.
So, that's what happens when you deal with these TV networks and streaming networks. The money just starts piling up. And the thing about it is, before now, they had to spend the money to show that they didn't earn any money. Now, oh man, looks like we need to do this, or we need a new let's put a new field in. Track team needs new cleats and a new turf to run on. Let's put that up. Now that money is going to be going directly to the players and player retention. And what we want as Buckeye fans is more victories.
Championships. Not just conference championships, national championships. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Kinner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio, iHeartRadio app, Chatterbox Sports, ESPN Dayton YouTube channel, of course, and the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. We'll step away for a few moments, but we're live on all those channels that we just talked about. Get in on the conversation. Leave your opinion in the comment section. We're going to interact with those. I see comments from Chad and Shaw. Who else chimed in here at the very beginning? Nate on YouTube. What up, Nate? Looks like a Bengals fan. He has a Bengals jersey on and his little profile picture there, but he's talking about the Duran interview from last week. Shout out to him as well. We got some Duran news coming up around the corner, but we'll get to all of that when we come back. I am curious, Buckeye fans, do you have a problem when people say Ohio State, they bought their roster? Or you kind of agree with me in the sense of good? You're glad that they bought. I think we're all saying the same thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that this is happening. But do you guys agree? 518-1410. If you're not a Buckeye fan, are we just being cocky and arrogant? Let's hear from you. 518-1410. Phone lines are open. We'll be right back.
You've liked and followed the Justin Kinner Show on Facebook. Enter a contest. Weigh in on the latest sports debates. Plus, you can watch Kinner and Kev weekdays at 3 p.m. Yeah, as if listening to them isn't bad enough. Now you can see them. Reds, Bengals, Browns, Buckeyes, and more. Follow the Justin Kinner Show on Facebook. Don't miss Kinner and Kev, weekdays at 3 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio. Buckeye fans, don't miss Dayton's own Keith Byers every Wednesday at noon on The Keith Byers Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken.
And we are back. It's the Kinner and Kev Show. Dayton's ESPN Radio 1410 Wing AM 518. Yeah, I know. I hear it. 518-1410. 518-1410. That's the number. You buzzed? A little buzzed right now?
I wish. In about, let me think. 10 days. 10 days.
Going to the Rico, huh?
Yeah, man.
The Rico to the Puerto Rico, baby. I'll be
wait.
here in Dayton, the 937 in June with the Bad Reds team, and no sports to talk about.
This be the NBA Finals, man.
What did he say? Can't wait. No, but nonetheless, Kinner Kev 1410 ESPN Radio. So did Ohio State buy their roster? That's the big, not really debate, if you will, but again, Ryan Day was on the podcast with, of course, Bobby Carpenter and Jeremy Birmingham and Austin Ward. And they do that show from a Roosters location over in Columbus. And they asked Ryan Day, what does he think when he hears people criticize the program and say that they bought that roster? Take a listen.
8 guys make a decision that they came to together for their own individual purposes, and yet people just want to Ohio State bought a roster.
Well, people say a lot about Ohio State, right? I mean, that's just the way it goes. We get a lot of attention.
It just pisses me off.
Yeah, but it's whatever you give attention to. I mean, that's not true. We brought in 6 guys, so I mean, like it's in the offseason, in January, and they were all the fit holes. So if that's the game, we're going to play it and we're going to be aggressive. And the guys on the team are the ones that embraced it. I talked to Travion Henderson before we brought in Quinshon Judkins. I talked to the guys on the team about, bringing these pieces in, and they all wanted that. I think that's what is great about Ohio State. And during the recruiting process, I look these recruits in the eye and say, Ohio State's not for everybody.
As we talked about, we both love the response from Ryan Day. And again, a lot of the perception out there, and Buckeye fans, of course, don't have a problem with it. Or they have a problem with it because they feel like people are trying to water down. Everyone's saying Ohio State, one of the favorites to win the national championship next year. Oh, yeah, they're just like Texas A&M. They had to go buy. Well, what did Texas A&M buy? What did they buy? They bought a recruiting class, but Ohio State used NIL funds to retain a roster, which if your team's not retaining a roster because you don't have NIL funds, that's a big problem and a red flag on your program. That's not an indictment on who Ohio State is. That's just the name of the game. Unfortunately, and I'm not a big fan of it, but also that's just the way you could sit here and be the get off my lawn guy, or accept the fact that college athletics is transactional now, and it is what it is. But as we talked about, you could be transactional. You can have the funds to give out as many dollars as you want. Doesn't mean that those players are going to go there. As we talked about earlier, this idea that Tuimalau and the guys that stayed at Ohio State, this idea that Judkins went to Ohio State because it's the only school that was going to give him money. You think Will Howard, that was the only school that was going to give him money to be their quarterback? Caleb Downs, one of the most sought after free agents in college athletics, if you will. You think Ohio State was the only program that had money to give him? No, they all chose Ohio State because they felt that was the best place culturally, financially, and an opportunity for them to enhance their capabilities and be in a position to win a national championship. It's not just transactional. You have to check off a lot of boxes. Look at Colorado. That's a program that is trying to be transactional, and it's not going very well. All right, Colorado, they have a lot of holes. You heard Ryan Day. Well, hey, we filled some holes, with Caleb Downs. We filled some holes with those guys. I don't think he filled a hole with Judkins. That was just hey, why not? But they filled some holes. That's great. That's what you do. Colorado, they have the funds that they're trying to fill a lot of holes, and they're not getting the Judkins of the world. They're not getting the Downs of the world. They're not getting the Will Howards of the world. So all I'm saying is Ohio State's doing nothing wrong. If anything, they're playing the game the way it should be played, and it shouldn't have taken them 3 years to catch up with the NIL train that Alabama and some of these other programs were kind of ahead of the curve on.
Yeah, I think the programs like Georgia, a Texas, a Florida State were leaps and bounds ahead of Ohio State and Alabama, to be perfectly honest, about their NIL collectives. But, it takes losses to your biggest rival. It takes being embarrassed on a throwaway bowl game for, the people with deep pockets to say enough is enough. And that's just how it goes. I mean, we can cry about it and talk about it to the moon. Comes down tonight, but it is what it is. This is the new world of college sports, and guess what? In about 10 minutes, it's going to change to something else, and we haven't even been able to understand what happened now. So it's a ever-changing situation. But at the end of the day, us as fans, we just want to win games. So whatever it takes to win those games is what we want our team to do. So if it is buying a roster, if that's how it's perceived on the outside looking in, oh, well, do you think Yankees fans care that they, quote unquote, bought championships in the 90s? One of my best friends, he's a Yankees fan. He rubs it in my face all the time. It's like, yeah, we haven't won since the 2000s, but guess what? Y'all ain't won since, your grandmother was in middle school. Like, that's a fact. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a fact. I want the Guardians to win a championship. That's a fact. So, we as fans shouldn't be worried about what other fan bases are saying, because guess what? They don't control anything that we got going on, because guess what? If we hoist the championship trophy, we're going to be happy. We're going to be ecstatic. And it is what it is. And let's be clear, man. Like you said, if there were other teams, we heard this before. We heard this when Caleb Williams transferred to USC. All we heard was, oh, man, Marv might go out there. Oh, man, JSN might go out there. They stayed at Ohio State. Like, these guys have options and plenty of options to go elsewhere. They chose to stay at Ohio State. Yeah, they got money to stay. Yeah, but ultimately they stayed because this is where they wanted to be. The money on top is like, okay, I'm going to get taken care of, right? Yes, of course we're going to take care of you. Well, all right, well, we're good. Like, and I am a firm believer, not anytime in the next 3 years, but I am firm believer, like in the next 5 years, the NIL stuff will, quote unquote, relax, and we'll get, quote unquote, a level playing field where it's going to get back to those relationships between coach and player and the program to some extent. Like, it isn't all going to be like, oh man, like the Jaden Rashada situation where he was going to go to Florida, then he was going to go to Miami, and then going back to Florida, and then he went to Arizona State. Now he's at Georgia. Now he's suing Florida. At some point, all the money's going to be basically the same, and you as a player are going to make a decision about, hey man, which program is going to get me to the next level, because oh man, they're offering me $10,000, but Ohio State, man, they're only offering me $9,500. Like, it's just not going to
family.
Yeah, it's not going to work out like that. Like, you're not going to make those type of decisions for $500.
Kinner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio, 518-1410. That's the number to call. 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. You heard Ryan Day respond to Jeremy Birmingham when asked about the perception that Ohio State has bought their roster, and basically saying, hey, Ohio State, everyone talks about Ohio State, is what it is. But he went ahead and kind of pounded home the talking points of the culture of Ohio State. They didn't go out and just buy a roster. They retained a roster. They went out and brought guys in that they needed to fill some holes with. And yes, they have the NIL funds to do it, and there's no reason to hate on that. But I'm curious your thoughts. Buckeye fans, do you get bothered when people say Ohio State bought their roster? 518-1410. Let's go to Mike. Mike, thanks for holding, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for holding, man. What you got?
Just a response to that. Is it because of the money or the number of players in the portal that we picked up? Because if it's the number of players, Michigan, I think, was approaching that double-digit mark prior to last season. Yeah, they picked up 9 or 10, I believe, and I know we're under that for this season, right?
I think they said 6 or 8 is the number, Kev, like 6 to 8. It's 6 to 8. And to Ryan Day's point, Mike, it was
2 walk-ons.
It was guys that they needed. Like, it was positions that they needed to enhance and upgrade at.
Right.
As far as that's concerned. So yeah, and even if it was the amount of guys that they brought in, if you have the money and you could, just because, like when they say, oh well, they have a cornerback. Well, is there a better cornerback?
Right.
I think that stuff matters too. But I don't think Ohio State's doing that. They're not trying to bump people out. They're just trying to fill some holes at the moment, and they'll probably become more aggressive as time goes on.
And look at like Kinner said, like, look at the holes that they were able to fill. They were able to get the best free safety in college football, who happened to be a true freshman. So guess what? He's going to be at Ohio State for his sophomore and junior year because he can't go pro. So we're going to get him into the future. So it's not a quote unquote 1-year rental. And then you allow a guy like Sonny Styles to bump down to linebacker. Like, so you basically got 2 for 1. So you got more players out of that. And then, we got a running back. We got a real good running back in Henderson. Oh, well, how about another running back? Because running backs get banged up. We can play a pony set. We can play them both at the same time. Just go back and look at Oregon and what Chip Kelly was able to do with LaMichael James and Kenyon Burner. Remember that offense. Remember those dudes were busting off 80-yard runs back to back. Oh, he's tired? Well, guess what? We got another guy just as good, just as experienced. We all know how good Dallin Hayden was. but he didn't have whatever the experience needed, and I think that's an upgrade. I mean, Dallin Hayden was good, but I think that Junkins could be great. And I mean, Kinner, you also talked about the guys that Colorado are getting, like they got our third string running back or fourth string running back in some people's eyes, and Dallin Hayden to go there. We're all rooting for Dallin Hayden. He's a former Buckeye, but I don't think it's going to work out well for him. I think he would have got better reps at Ohio State in practice than he was going to get out there in Colorado.
Mike, you have you are fine with Ohio State's approach to the portal, to NIL, to everything, to the construction of this roster.
It's the norm these days.
Exactly. Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
What do we gain out of this? We gained obviously depth, but 2 starters, which that's not buying a roster. That's filling in 2 holes. I've got an interesting graph here from On3.
Mm-hmm.
Now, provided this is a couple months old. Guess who for Power 5 NIL team rankings? Guess who's number 1?
Who?
It's not Ohio State. It's Texas. 19.9 million. Alabama second, 16 million. Ohio State third, 13.6. Guess who's sitting down just 2 million under us? Michigan. So we're all doing it.
The interesting thing about the 2, and I'm not defending or attacking any team on there, Alabama, we talked about Ohio State, a couple holes to fill, and they did that with Downs, and they do that with Will Howard. But Alabama, they lose Nick Saban, they bring in a new coach. He had a mass exodus of players leave Alabama, so of course they had to kind of ramp up their spending to go get some players to fill some holes. Same thing with Michigan, not defending them, not even at all. They cheat, so who knows? They probably didn't even do it in a clean way. So no, but in all seriousness, like there's all different reasons to be high up on that list. But good for Ohio State. Those were 3 big high impact players that they got. They got 6 total. They retained future NFL guys, and that's why they're national championship favorites heading into next year.
Absolutely. But long story short, everyone's doing it. 11 teams spent $10 million or more.
Now, Mike, you definitely sound like a Michigan fan there, saying everyone's doing it. If you want to
keep up with the Joneses, you gotta spend. And the precedent's been set. Ohio State was late to the NIL deal.
Yep.
With collectives, but guess what? We hit the ground running. I think we're doing pretty good. Now we just need the results to show on the field.
Indeed. Mike came with nothing but research. I like it.
I do too. I do. Mike, you the best. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
But yeah, when Mike said, well, everyone else is doing it, so it's okay. I was like, oh, that's the most Michigan thing I've ever heard in my life.
No, it's legal, so that makes it okay.
Exactly. Yeah, everyone's wearing their seatbelt. Not everyone's not wearing their seatbelt. So why are you giving me a ticket? Now, speaking of that excuse, Shaw's waiting on hold.
Boy.
Shaw's waiting on hold. Shaw, how you doing, buddy?
Not bad. How about yourself?
Not bad. Now, just sitting here. What?
Uh-oh.
Just polishing off my national championship trophy.
Your national championship trophy?
Yeah.
That's where you're supposed to jump in and say, did you watch the game?
You guys can claim all yours. You guys can claim all yours. I can claim mine.
I've never once claimed to polish an Ohio State national championship trophy.
Only trophy Kinner had, he dropped and broke. It's over there in the corner.
But I'm not sure if you can see it. No one can tell.
I mean, we all can't be that clumsy. So
I got the video on our Facebook page. Anybody want to see it?
You're right. I'm so clumsy. I dropped this call.
Oh!
Boom! I'm just kidding. Shaw's on hold. Shaw's on hold. But yeah, I'm so clumsy. I dropped that call right there. No. Kinner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio. Shaw's on hold. Ron Howard with typical Ron. Weed is legal. Not everyone's doing it.
Shouts out the issue too.
Yeah. So Randy Scott Jr., what up, Randy? He says that's just other teams. Hayton saying all that about Ohio State. Buckeyes are doing what other teams have been doing and getting away with. But see, we're talking about this in a dirty way. They're not doing anything wrong.
It's legal.
It's legal.
It's legal. And also, thing about it is, Coach Day is 100% right. Ohio State gets talked about a ton because they are Ohio State. They are a big dog. So if they didn't do this, they would be talked about like, hey, they didn't fill their holes. They filled their holes. They're still talked about. It doesn't matter anything that Ohio State does. They're going to be a hot topic. They moved the needle. Obviously, they moved the needle for us here in Ohio, obviously. But, like, they moved the needle down there in Alabama, too, because they see what we got going on. They see what we got going on at Georgia. They're looking. They're watching. They know who the other contenders are out there. And then they also know when the other contenders out there aren't doing what they're supposed to do. So, it, like Coach Day said, we're going to be talked about regardless. If we win, we lose, they're going to be talked about, So, hey, you might as well win if you're going to be talked about.
Alabama's definitely paying they're a little insecure right now too, because, they not just worrying about Georgia in their own division or their own conference. You just get Texas coming over with Oklahoma. Now you got Ohio State, who's dominating in with NIL and everything else in the portal and the roster construction. Michigan just won a national championship out of the Big Ten. A lot of teams coming up while they're taking a step back during this coaching transition. We'll see if they can keep going in the post Nick Saban era. But I did not drop the call of Mr. Shaw. We'll make him wait just a little longer. Kinner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio. And a lot more to dive into. We'll be right back.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency on earth, and if you owe back taxes... You've liked and followed the Justin Kinner Show on Facebook. Enter contests. Weigh in on the latest sports debates. Plus, you can watch Kinner and Kev weekdays at 3 p.m. Yeah, as if listening to them isn't bad enough. Now you can see them. Reds, Bengals, Browns, Buckeyes, and more. Follow the Justin Kinner Show on Facebook. Don't miss Kinner and Kev, weekdays at 3 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio. Buckeye fans, don't miss Dayton's own Keith Byers every Wednesday at noon on The Keith Byers Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken.
got duped by the Cincinnati Reds.
Got him.
I got duped by the Cincinnati Reds.
Got him.
They sweep the Dodgers.
Got them.
They scored a lot of runs. Their pitching was fantastic. And then they dropped 2 or 3 at home against the Cardinals. I got duped by the Cincinnati Reds.
It happens.
It's happened a lot.
But to be fair, I'm going to remind you what you said before the season started. This is a young team, so expect peaks and valleys. So I'm just reminding you what you told me and the listeners in April. Does that make you feel better?
If there were more peaks, yeah.
Well, the peak was beating the Dodgers, not beating the Dodgers, sweeping the Dodgers.
Well, that's like, it's like being a Browns fan. You can only beat the Bengals so many times before, okay, that's just no longer good enough anymore. You got to start beating the other teams too. So they always beat the Dodgers. It's weird. The Reds have the Dodgers number the way the Browns have the Bengals number. It's a wild thing. You watch the Browns just destroy the Bengals, and then they struggle to beat good teams after that. You watch the Reds sweep the Dodgers. They drop 2 or 3 against the Cardinals. It's brutal. It's brutal.
Well, my beloved Guardians lost 2 or 3 to the Rockies. Does that make you feel any better?
That makes me feel a little bit better.
I figured it would.
I'm that petty of a person where if I'm unhappy, everyone needs to be unhappy.
I knew that would make you happy.
Spread that joy around. Like I tell you what, it is what it is. But we welcome you back again, Kinner and Kev Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. The Reds, 9 games back in the NL Central, last place, 24-32 on the season. All right, and now I say that about the Cardinals as if they're some horrible team. I mean, they're a 500 ball club. They're 27-27. In fact, when the Reds were right up there at the top of the NL Central back in late April, the Cardinals were all the way at the bottom. Now the Cardinals are 27-27. They're five games back of the Brewers in the NL Central. The Cubs are 28-29. They're 5.5 back. The Pirates are 26-30, and there's the Reds 9 games back at 24-32. Now, again, sweeping the Dodgers, who are 36-22, who, and by the way, keep in mind, since getting swept by the Reds, the Dodgers have won 3 straight. They've won 3 straight. They woke up and said, we can't lose to the Reds. We can't, we're way better than that. Like, we got to get this stuff figured out. But as of right now, at one point, the Reds, who, when they swept the Dodgers, they got to within 2.5 of the wild card. And I'm not like obsessing over a wild card race in May, but it's pretty much June now. And so here in a few days, when we come back next week and we're talking, it'll officially be June. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be able to say things like the All-Star games next month.
Wow.
The trade deadline's next month. We're a month away from there only being less than, a month and a half, 2 months of the season. And then, they're running out of time. This idea that there's plenty of time. They are 4.5 back in the wild card right now. The only teams worse than them in the National League right now, the Mets, the Rockies, and the Marlins. The Mets, the Rockies, and the Marlins. You see that mess with the Mets?
Oh, the dude throwing his glove into the stands, and then they basically sent him down to Double-A, and now they're going to release him or something like that?
Release him, and the comment in the post-game basically just saying he plays on the worst team in baseball. I mean, not the worst. There's a couple teams worse.
No, I would consider the Mets the worst team in baseball. I know not like record-wise, but they stink. And they have a crazy payroll. So, I consider that worse. If you're a team like our beloved Reds or Guardians or even a Pirates or anything like that, or the Oakland A's who aren't spending any money and you stink, then it is what it is. But if you're spending all that money, you got all this star power, all these names that turn butts at the stands, not only at their home park, but on the road as well, because people want to come see those players play, I think they are having a worse season.
So, this kind of ties into what we talked about to open up the show today about buying a roster. Did Ohio State buy their roster? They spent the necessary funds to retain and add, yes. Is the negative connotation that surrounds it. Well, I think it's too early to have that negative connotation. If Ohio State loses to Michigan again, if Ohio State loses to Oregon, if Ohio State doesn't win the Big Ten, if they don't make the 12-team college football playoff, if they don't win a game in the 12-team college football playoff, we'll talk about expectations. I mean, it's a championship. This team's expected to win a national championship this upcoming season. So, but the thing is, when you look at whatever Ohio State does this upcoming season, them spending all this money and all that, it's only a bad thing if they don't fulfill
Right.
what they're expected to do. That's why the Texas A&M thing, that was a prime opportunity for Texas A&M, and we thought that there was going to be a new power in college football. Kev did it. He had no freaking faith at all, right? But everyone thought, man, you look what Texas A&M do. They got that fuel money. Remember, they got all that old fuel money, man. They're just going to buy up all these players left and right, right? Like, that's what Texas A&M was going to do. You got, I was calling him Dabo, but Jimbo. Dabo's the opposite of Jimbo, although heading in the same direction. Jimbo, I mean, who just was like, he had beat Alabama the year before. They had the number one recruiting class. It was the highest ranked recruiting class ever. They'd spent more than anyone has ever spent on a recruiting class before. How'd that work out? Fired a year later. They didn't even come close to living up to expectations. So you open the door. When you're Ohio State, you open the door to this criticism. When you're a team like the Mets, the Dodgers, the Yankees, when you don't fulfill what you're supposed to do after all the money and all the just the tooling the roster, that's what brings expectations. When you don't meet those expectations, that's when everything comes falling down on you. Especially
at Ohio State when the expectations are already high, regardless of what happens. I mean, shoot, I remember the year that Coach Tressel got fired and then Fickle stepped in, and the expectations from the fan base were still, hey, man, we're not expecting the national championship. Just win the Big Ten and you'll be fine. That obviously didn't happen. We went 6-7, lost to that team up north, lost to Florida in the bowl game. And then we hired, Coach Meyer, and then ultimately won the national championship. But like, the expectations for elite programs remain the same no matter what happens. We as fans don't care. Like, oh man, what do you mean DeVere Posey suspended for 10 games? Oh, Boom Herron suspended for 9 games. Yeah, we don't care. Go win the Big Ten at least. That's the facts. That's the facts. So now you throw in all these elite level players. You throw in all this returning players. You throw in a Chip Kelly, a former head coach coming to be an offensive coordinator who you, head coach Ryan Day, have a relationship. He was your OC when you still play. So like it's set up for Ohio State to win, and it's also set up for the vultures to attack if we don't win. Yeah, I think, and that's really what this all comes down to. So Ohio State, do they buy the roster? Sure. Is it a bad thing? It's only a bad thing if they don't win. Right. If you're going to have the best of the best, you better win. If not, you're spending all that money for no damn reason as far as that's concerned. Chad Kinser, he says the Reds' peaks and valleys are the equivalent of the Miamisburg Mound, which I just golfed there yesterday, by the way. The Mound, have you seen the Mound? I have. Yeah, yes. That's quite the peak. And he said, and the Grand Canyon. Wow. So those are the peaks and valleys that you speak of. I like the comparison there, Chad. Good job. Ryan Roth. Ryan, hope you're doing well, sir. He says with NIL, everybody is paying for their roster and the kids are leaving programs to take advantage of NIL money. Now, I would have agreed with you during basketball season. I think we see more of this in basketball than others. But what we've seen with Ohio State and college football and others serves more of Kev's point, where these guys, they're not as dumb as what we make them out to be. Oh, dollar sign. We're following dollar sign. Like that's all they could think of, right? Like there are guys who are making the best decision for them while having their cake and eating it too. Right. There are more opportunities for football than there are basketball players. Right. So I think it seems to be magnified more issue-wise with college basketball than college football. But a lot of these guys made great business decisions. You talked about, why am I drawing a blank? The wide receiver you just talked about, Emeka Egbuka, gets that second-round grade, right? He can come out and get drafted in the second round, or he can go back to Ohio State, make the same money he would get if he was drafted in the second round, and play his way in a less crowded wide receiver draft class next year. Bingo. And probably be a top 3 wide receiver taken off the board next year in the first round and make significantly more money next year. This was have your cake and eat it too. Go back to Ohio State, get paid the same money you get paid drafted in the second round, potentially have a chance to win a national championship and be drafted high in the first round next year as one of the highly sought after wide receivers coming out of the draft. So that to me is a great business decision as far as that's concerned. And I mean, Emeka Egbuka, like he talk about having your cake and eating it too. He's already graduated. He graduated in 3 years. So now you're in grad school or whatever, or postgraduate or whatever, taking yoga or whatever the case may be. So it's all about football. It's not only football in the morning, evening, and at night. I mean, he's a senior, so the partying is probably over with. He's probably hit up every club on High Street during his freshman year back when he wasn't playing a whole bunch. Hit the ground running as a sophomore, buckled down, banged up last year, but still played a solid role. Now is my time to shine. Let me really lock in. I've graduated. I've done all the necessary things. I partied like a rock star. I'm on the Buckeyes. I make money. This is the time. So him and Will Howard, I hope they're up there at the Woody right now working out together, getting those route combos together, because we're going to need a big year from our number one wide receiver.
It's the Kinner and Kev Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. All right, 518-1410, 518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. Shaw, I lied to you. I said we're going to get to this segment. Got to make you wait one more. One more. Got a little chatty, I did. My bad. That happens. That happens.
Oh, we're back.
Yeah, we'll be back. About to go. I had to stop that for something, but nonetheless. You think they'll notice? Who knows?
I know Debbie will.
No, Debbie will be fine. The clock has been, we got to go. Kinner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio. We will be right back. We got 10 more to dive into NBA playoffs. This is our Friday today. Kev Nash. No, you're not off next week. You're going to
No, I'm here all next week. I'm here. It's going to be a crazy week next week. It's going to be working basically 3 weeks in one, because I'm going to be off the following week. So, matter of fact,
be a jerk next week,
yes, I am going to be a stickler about time and being, hey, I need this on time, because once 5 o'clock hits on Friday,
it's a good thing everyone respects your request too.
But in the chat, so I'm going to Puerto Rico, San Juan, Puerto Rico. Any things that I need to do, any restaurants I need to hit, any excursions I need to do, anything that I need to sightsee, hit us up in the chat, hit us up on the phone line as well. Hit me up at 1 Kev Nash. Anything that I have to do when I'm in San Juan, Puerto Rico, let me know. I'm a itinerary type of person when I go on vacation.
Guess what I am?
I know.
What's that place? Let's go check it out.
So hit me up so I can do my intel, and then I can add it to the list. And make sure you follow me at 1 Kev Nash on Instagram. I'll be posting pics of my vacation.
By the way, when you go to a place like that, you need an itinerary. You need you can spend all that money. Maximize it, be prepared. Not But I'm one of them. I don't like to do stuff on vacation. I'm lazy.
We could just stay in Dayton.
That's why I like to go to a beach and just be
that's an activity.
Be fat on a beach.
That's cool.
I can just sit on a beach and drink with friends for hours.
So you go to Florida a lot.
Yep.
How many days do y'all do the chill on the beach thing?
So it was what we love about, me, my wife, my best friend, his wife, and it's been like a rotation of friends that go every single year. We've done this like 5 straight years, but have a badass house in Pensacola, has a pool on the roof. So you wake up and you start drinking.
Yeah.
Pop open a beer. The windows all open up around the side of the house. So it's like you're just outside constantly, unless there's a hurricane that's just trying to ruin your entire weekend, right? So, but then we sit around the pool, and then we go bar hop, and we go to different restaurants, and we come back, around the pool again, go to the beach, hang out for a bit, come back. We go bar hopping again, come back. A lot of drinking.
I like it.
A lot of hanging out. So
I like it. So I could do
cigars.
that. I could do that one day, but I'm going to need an activity. I'm an activity person.
Okay,
so
fair.
Even though I can't swim, I'm a non-swimmer. If it's snorkeling, I would like to do that. If we're going to do the jet skis, I would like to do that. But I can just chill here. I can go buy an inflatable pool and throw it in the backyard, chill all day. If I'm in a different place, I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to see that place. I'm a tourist type of guy. I don't mind doing the tourist things. I don't mind doing all the pictures and all that type of stuff. I'm here for it.
As you should. And to me, like I said, just so Nate, what up, Nate? Nate on YouTube. He goes, Kev, just relax and drink. It's all you need to do.
I definitely will be drinking.
Just relax and drink. That's all you need.
I haven't had any alcohol. So by the time I get to Puerto Rico, I would not have an alcoholic beverage in 97 days.
I was going to ask you about that.
97
what about chips?
days.
Have you had chips yet?
I have.
Good for you.
Wow.
What kind of chips? What's your chip of choice?
Well, the go-to chip for me is Cool Ranch Doritos, but I have not had any Cool Ranch Doritos. I've only had tortilla chips. We went to go get some tacos, so I had some tortilla chips. So I'm saving my Cool Ranch for a little bit later. I got a specific date for that.
Ryan Roth has a boo. He says, me and my boo are going to Hawaii in January.
Yeah.
Ryan Roth and his boo are going to Hawaii. Aloha.
That is so cool. And that is something that the wife and I have talked about constantly, like the last 2 or 3 years. Like, wait, we're going on vacation in the summer, which is fine, but we're going to a hot destination in the summer where we're leaving somewhere hot. Shouldn't we be going on vacation in January, in February to somewhere warm? And we haven't done it yet. So, Ryan, and your boo. Y'all gonna have a great time. Y'all very smart to be going to Hawaii in January.
Yeah, we went to the Keys for Thanksgiving last
Smart.
year. And that was, it was kind of cool. With watching Ohio State, it was not kind of cool. It was kind of miserable. But, at the beach watching Ohio State, Michigan.
See?
A couple years ago, we went to Universal for Christmas,
Yeah.
So, but,
Yeah. One day I'll be able to talk her into it. Well, we
One
gotta
day.
we gotta go see family during the holiday. Huh? Tell them FaceTime me.
Actually, I've had a couple great holidays where it was just going. A small gathering for Thanksgiving in the Keys.
Where
Christmas,
do you work?
Never mind. Ryan Roth and his boo are going to Hawaii in January. Good for you guys.
HAWAII.
We'll be right back. Kinner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken has the best fast food fried chicken.
And we are back. It's the Kinner and Kev Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. So last week, when Deron Holmes came on last week, in the clip of him saying he wanted to play Wright State, of course, that took off on social media as we figured that it would, but that won't make a difference. You get the best players in the history of the program coming out saying he wanted. I mean, not just that he thinks that they should play. He said he wanted to play Wright State. Wanted to play Wright State. That won't make it.
No.
You know, I saw Grant Basile too. He tweeted out, "Hey, let's, Gem City Jam 2025. Who says no?" And I'm like, "You want names or?" Is what it is. But yeah, interesting.
I mean, that's no surprise that what Deron said. I'm pretty sure you ask any player on either team, yeah, we'll play, because they're basketball players. Like, that's what they do. They play basketball. Oh, they play at that school. We're in the same town. Let's play. If you ask, hey, the Central State guys, yeah, they'll play Wright State. They'll play UD. You ask the Wilberforce team, they'll play. They're all in the same deal. They point up, and I'm almost guaranteed they've probably played before. You know what I'm saying? And like, that's the other crazy thing about the whole Wright State UD basketball thing. Like, I know, like, we don't talk a ton of Central State and Wilberforce sports here, but could you imagine if Wilberforce and Central State didn't play? Like, it would be insane. Like, they're literally right across the street from each other. And that's basically the same thing with Wright State and UD. Granted, they're not right across the street from each other. They're 15 minutes away from each other, and they don't play. Craziness. It's madness.
And there's only one side to blame. It's not both.
It's
the one side that always complains about how hard it is to schedule. Feel bad for us. Well, you make it that way. I mean, you imagine shooting yourself in the foot and saying, "Why does my foot hurt?" I mean, that's UD half the time when it comes to that stuff. It's very simple.
I mean, they play Horizon League teams this past season, so if you're gonna play
every year,
you're gonna play a Horizon League team. Why not play one that's actually in your city? So, like, that's the silly part. That's the silly part about it. Like, that is what makes it blatant that you're not playing on purpose. And we blow you out. What do we get out of it? You get a blowout victory. But what about, like, the city? What about the people that want to see the game? Like, I'm sure there's some UD fans out there that want to see that game, would rather see that game than see them play, I don't know, a Cleveland State. Because guess what? 9 times out of 10, the UD fans, they probably work with some Wright State fans. So guess what happens at work the next day? We blew you guys out. Like,
yeah,
like it's sports. And I think that's what people have to remember. It's sports. Sports are supposed to be fun. Sports are supposed to be entertaining and fun, and not just all about, hey, we're better than you. If you are, then play. And then if you prove that you're better than us, then it is what it is. But it's not what it is because you as a program are refusing to do so. Not as players, not as coaches, the people that actually, make things happen on a management level. So it's not the players, it's not the coaches, it's the people that, are in charge.
I blame coaches, though, because if Anthony Grant wanted the game to happen, it would happen. If he went into Neil Sullivan's office and I'm Anthony Grant, it happens. I think for here,
I think it's a situation with coach like, hey, man, whatever, dude.
He has enough bad losses on his record.
I think it's a situation where
he lost to Penn.
But they won a tournament game this season.
Man, it took 7 years. I can't wait to see what they do in the next 7 years.
Glass half empty.
And Duran's leaving, so unless another Duran's coming in. But
what'd you think about Duran's video?
I thought that was cool. I like when they get creative with it, and it's not like he's a very shy, kind of quiet dude. Not quiet, but like he's very introverted. Like that's the perception. So I thought that was kind of a cool video, the way it was kind of panned out and everything. But it's how everything works today. So. Yeah.
I'm surprised there weren't any videos of him like packing up his apartment or anything like that. Like from last week,
putting his sunglasses on, going to Arizona, dude.
Like, I mean, obviously, like he did the media rounds and there wasn't an official announcement, but everybody had that same inkling. Like, all right, this is probably him just tying up some loose ends, so to speak, in Dayton, Ohio. So yeah, deuces are wild. Next time I come back, I'll be coming back as a pro.
I should have asked him this too, because like we all knew you were going. Like, why wait to the last second? I mean, like literally the last second. Like, again, if I was
Had to edit the video,
anywhere
man.
between 18 to 21, 22 years old, I would be as attention seeking as possible as well. But my God, like, well, you made your fans just sit on the, on the edge of their seat for months, just waiting, just to be told that Santa's not real. I mean, it's just it was horrible.
Well, you spent 2 hours with him. I spent an hour with him. Do you get that he's an attention seeking person from, the limited time that we had with him?
No, he's actually like the most normal dude you'll ever meet. So that means someone else put him up to it. That's what it is. No, Rice, they got a commitment yesterday, by the way, from a guy named Andrea Hamilton. He plays Andrea Holden from Hamilton. And check out this. And again, this is great radio right here. But
I saw that. Yeah.
Finally, some playmaker. Look.
So I see the jerseys.
Look like Kentucky.
I thought, it was like, did we just get a Kentucky transfer?
But
and then I read, I was like, oh, he's in high school. But welcome.
But the athleticism too, that's what they wanted to focus on.
Nasty dunk, I like it.
Proven in that. They also had that Alex Bruscutter kid coming, who was like, he was almost Mr. Basketball here. He was a Mr. Basketball finalist here. Had a chance to see him at state. Him and Colin White. Colin White, Mr. Basketball, is going to Ohio State. I mean, their game very similar. I mean, they play very similar. So I'm intrigued by this roster heading into next year. Dayton. Outside Zed Key is a big addition. Like you lose Deron Holmes, you have Zed Key. I still think. I mean, people going off. I see when they add he averaged 5 points, this, that, and the other. No, Zed Key's a dude. Like he could play. I don't know what happened last year, but we saw 2 years ago when they went on that run. So last year, obviously, didn't play a whole lot, which led to his departure. But when they went on that big run late 2 seasons ago, Chris Holtman second to last season, that happened because of him. Like that, I mean, he was just bullying guys down low before he ultimately got hurt and it's that shoulder. That's the thing Dayton has to be the most concerned about is just the injury stuff. But the dude could play, and he could do that in the Big Ten. He could do that in the A-10.
Absolutely. So
B-10, as I call
it. So to the people out there that complain about the pace of play for the Flyers, I think I'm looking at one right now. If you were upset or did not like the pace of play last year, get ready for this upcoming season because Zed Key does not move at the same pace as a one Deron Holmes II. I'll leave it at that.
Someone said, Kinner, how come you didn't bring up the pace of play to Deron? I'm like, you think Deron's going to complain about the pace of play? He touched the ball every time. Well, no, he didn't. Technically, he didn't touch the ball every time down the floor. That's what Flyer fans are speaking of. But I mean, he was the guy on that team. He can't complain about anything. It's everyone else. Can we get out and run a little bit? And
I'm just saying. If people are expecting Zed Key to be this dominant offensive player, he is not a gazelle like the last guy or the guy that was before that.
Yep.
So, like, if you're expecting, like, oh man, we about to be out here running and gunning and just fast breaking it, and no, if he's the offensive focal point, it's going to be a methodical game. Just to, I don't know how many months in advance. I'm telling people like 6 months in advance. So don't say Kev Nash didn't tell you.
Let's go to Mr. Shaw. Shaw, we've made you wait long enough. I've made you wait long enough.
What's going on, fellas?
What up, dog?
So many places to start, but I'll start right here. I'll start where you guys started the show off. Did you guys buy the roster? Yes. Did you do the same thing Michigan did? Yes. Did you fill holes that you needed? Yes. Is that how the game's played today? Yes. Do I see anything wrong with it? No. That being said, there's only one way this plays out. There's only one way that this is a successful off season for the Buckeyes, and that's doing what the Wolverines did last year, hoisting the national championship. Not just beating Michigan, not just winning the Big Ten championship. It's winning the whole thing.
Correct.
Even in a 12-team college football playoff.
There is no other. I was just getting ready to say that.
Okay, keep going.
I'm glad you went there.
Okay.
I'm glad you went there. There is no other circumstance that will justify bringing all of those seniors back, bringing in the 3 players to fill the holes that you needed to fill the holes, Ryan Day losing to Michigan 3 times. There is no other outcome for this season that will justify saying that this was a successful season. There isn't one. Now, firing Ryan Day and keeping Ryan Day, that's a different conversation than what we just had. I think if you make the 12-team playoff and make the semifinal, aka get it to where we were last year, basically the Final Four, I think he saves his job. I think if you make it to the 12-team playoff and you lose first round, and for Ohio State's sake, heaven forbid, you lose to Michigan this year, he will be gone.
See, I think the only thing, Ryan Day's only gone if they lose to Michigan. I think he's only gone if they lose to Michigan. I don't think he has to win a national championship to save his job. I think that there will be criticism thrown his way, but also I think there'll be a little bit more leeway forgiveness-wise for not winning a 12-team college football playoff right off the bat. And I think the 12-team college football, look, the 4th-team, I was fine saying, hey, championship or bust, because it's 2 extra games, right? Like, not that it's a little bit, but it's 2 extra games. But how many would you have to? So 12-team, if you don't get the bye, I mean, you're probably going to get a bye most likely. So you have to play 3 extra games, playing up to 17. I think he could be forgiven and not lose his job if they don't win a national championship, depending on how they lose that game, who they lose to. But if he loses to Michigan, unless they win a national championship after losing to Michigan, he's done after next season. I don't see how they bring him back if he loses to Michigan 4 straight years.
Yeah, this is the part of the year where we start doing all these predictions and how things are going to go out. It's really about how the season plays out, because Kinner and I always had this discussion, especially earlier in Baker Mayfield's career, where they were winning games, but they weren't winning games the way he wanted them to win games. So if Ohio State is winning games, but it's basically how they were winning games last year, like it just doesn't look right, then okay, we got a problem here. But if they're mowing through teams left and right, they beat their biggest rival, they get all the way to the national championship game, and they lose a 1 possession game to whomever, I don't think that's a situation where like, all right, man, you're fired, man. You got us all the way here. You lost by 2 points to Georgia again. Oh my gosh, no. I think it's really how the season plays out, how these games unfold. If it's an up and down season, I think anything can be on the table. Well, do I expect an up and down season? No, but like, I do agree with Kinner and you. If they lose to Michigan again, I think then we need to have a serious conversation about, going forward with Coach Day. And I hate saying stuff like that.
I agree with the latter aspect of that they beat Michigan and all the other stuff, then Ryan Day keeps his job. My bigger point with this roster is I still have 2 questions about this roster, the same 2 questions I had last year. What's the offensive line? What's the quarterback? For all the money spent, for all the hype, for all the talk,
he gassing himself up. He's so ready for September.
I see, and it's funny you went there. Like, I can talk the football aspect of this. I always will be able to talk the football aspect of this. Am I excited for the season as if I should be after just winning the national championship? No, I'm not. Why am I not? What happened last week?
Hey, man, look, you should be excited. Y'all won the national championship, not expected to, quote unquote, repeat, which is fine. But just to be a football fan in general, and then, kind of, root for your rival to lose. Like, that, I mean, that would wake me up every morning.
That's football season stuff. With what happened last week.
Refresh my memory.
The whole the NCAA stuff and
the official pay to play.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the pay to play stuff that has me worried and has me like. It's what's going to happen to the non-Power 5 schools.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We can talk about the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Texases, the Alabamas, and all of that. They're going to be fine.
Right.
It's not them. It never has been them. They never will be a problem. They never have had a problem. It never will be.
I agree,
bring in
100%.
way too much money. They bring in way too much money, the TV money coming in and everything else. They are irrelevant in this part of the conversation for me. What is going to happen to the Miamis, the Kent States, the Akrons, the Ohios, schools like that?
I do you one better. What's going to happen to the Vanderbilts, the Northwesterns, teams that are in, the powerful conferences, but that just don't win? Like those teams, like they think things are sweet for them just because they got a seat at the table. At some point, like they're going to start getting the eyeball. Like, hey man, what are you guys actually bringing? Because the gale of academics and it actually being about education is out the window. So yeah, what do we need these nerd schools like a Northwestern? What do we need a nerd school like Stanford? What do we need a nerd school like Vanderbilt? We don't need that. We're here to play football. So football is king, football player and football teams and schools only. At some point, it's going to get to that. Hopefully, it's not no time soon.
Those schools, I think, will be fine because they're in those conferences and they're getting that TV money.
But my point is, like, at some point, like, those other teams are going to be like, hey, man, they're getting an equal cut and they haven't won a conference championship ever. Let the teams that actually have a chance get that money. Like, they're getting all this money and they're not winning.
Somebody's got to lose.
True.
Somebody's going to have to lose.
Somebody got to be the homecoming team.
Yes, exactly. And that's what the Vanderbilts, the Marylands, the Northwesterns, and all of those teams, that's what those teams will be. My issue with the non-Power 5 teams and mainly the non-SEC Big Ten teams, even the ACC, some of the smaller schools in the ACC for that matter, like they don't have that TV money to fall back on. So if the NCAA, and here we are as a sports fan, having to hope and pray that the Senate does something that makes sense and is legit. If they do not grant the exact, I agree with you 100%. If they do not grant the NCAA the, oh man, I knew I was going to forget what it's called. It's something to deal with the money and that all the states and their law are all of that stuff is under one rule. If that doesn't happen, you can kiss sports goodbye for those smaller schools.
Indeed.
You can kiss it goodbye. You can kiss it absolutely goodbye. And again, I've brought this up before and I'll bring it up again. There are thousands upon thousands of parents in this local area between softball, between baseball, and between soccer that are driving their kids this weekend, starting last weekend and going this weekend and every weekend until the end of summer, going to these tournaments and doing all of this stuff and spending all of this money and all this stuff in the hopes that their kids get a scholarship in these sports.
Well, that's the biggest scam in the entire country is travel baseball, travel softball, travel soccer, all that stuff. That's like the biggest scam out there. But continue. But Kevin's talking serious.
But no. You're right, Kinner. But and this is gonna get me on my soapbox in the conversation I was having with a good friend of mine. Is like, look, man, at some point, like, yes, we understand this is big business, and some of these sports are gonna go away at some point. But it's the responsibility of the parents to put half as much emphasis on their kids' education as it is them 100%. On their sports. Because I read this article about how much money is spent in travel sports. Now, and the article is basically bringing up like, hey, man, if you spent half of that money and put your kid in some tutoring, maybe they would get an academic scholarship. And guess what? Don't ever go out of style, an academic scholarship. They're not going to get rid of academics at colleges. You know what I'm saying? You're depending on your athleticism. Well, guess what? They got academic scholarships out the wazoo. Like if your kid got a 4.0 in high school, going to get an academic scholarship. The chances of you getting a sports scholarship are slim to none. Like just keeping it real. But your chances of getting an academic scholarship are way higher. So theoretically, shouldn't we be more focused on academics than sports? I know academics isn't as fun. People don't watch anything academics outside of the spelling bee. But like, hey man, if we're really trying to set up our kids and for their future, shouldn't we really be focusing on academics as opposed to sports? This is a sports show. I know I don't get.
Suck.
I don't want to get on my soapbox, but
No.
like that's the reality, dude. Like.
But my thing about that is, Kev. But I think that literally that conversation right there ties exactly into the bigger conversation. Is because all of this greed, and this is exactly what it is. It's greed, because yes, it started out as NIL, and it started out as paying the players. That's not what it became, and that's not what it is now. That's not what it is. And people cannot understand that aspect of it. Yes, they just came off with that settlement, and it's $20 million going to every school, and the old players are going to get money, and yada, yada, yada. But look about what happened for the last 5 years. Yes, we're talking about the Ohio State and what they did with this roster. And Ohio State was late coming to the party, and Michigan was late coming to the party. Were they really? No. Ohio State and Michigan were doing exactly what we were supposed to be doing, what everybody was told that the NCAA was going to be doing. What was actually happening, though? Some schools in the South, certain schools, were doing pay to play.
Mm-hmm.
You seem upset about teams not following the rules, Sean. You seem a little salty about that. I mean, everyone's doing it. Why are you so upset about it?
That's the problem, though. Everybody wasn't doing it. Everybody wasn't doing it. And my biggest issue, and I've told you guys this 900 times, and I'll tell you another 900 times. That's my problem with the University of Michigan. They weren't doing it. Oh, they were doing supposedly some things.
They were.
But they were not doing what they had to do. And I'm telling you right now, it's not this year that the problem's going to be with Michigan. It's going to be next year and the year after, where the recruiting for the last 3 years has dropped to crap levels. That's where the problem's going to be. This year, Michigan will be fine. National championship fine? No, they won't be national championship winners. Ring the bell, yada, yada, yada. I know, hot take, Michigan won't be winning the national championship. But next year, that's the fall off everybody thinks Michigan's going to have this year. It's next year. But on to another point, and Kev, and it just before, because I know I'm going to have to get kicked out of here at some point. But Kev, this one's to you, pal.
Me?
To you, pal.
You wanna talk to national ESPN guys about a certain question. But I couldn't answer the question on Tuesday, because just so happens you guys ran late. But there's a certain quarterback who only threw for 2 years and has 6,276 yards passing.
And that was what year was that? What year was that? What years was that?
The last 2 years.
Right. And then the other quarterback that you're about to mention, and what years did he play? And you already know that the game of college football has changed dramatically in the amount of passing that goes on. So like the stats is going to tell you one thing, like, because I could pull up Dan Marino stats from the 80s at Pitt, and they're going to be like, oh man, he wasn't a passer, but in his day he was.
You can't change the argument because the stats don't don't help you out.
I never brought up stats. I was just bringing up the fact that, hey man, I think he was a good quarterback. I think he's a better quarterback.
Until the last 2 years, until the last 3 years, I would have been right there with you. He was the best quarterback at the University of Michigan, and then there was no hands down to me. Somebody else came through and took his place because he's got feet and he's got an arm. For all the talk that JJ couldn't throw, he's 3,000 yards behind Chad Henne. And I understand game's different, yada, yada, yada. But who's number one in passing yards in Michigan? Chad Henne. You also brought up that JJ never had a game like the number 1 versus number 2 game against Ohio State.
Ooh, I knew that one would get him. Good job, Kev.
How quick
you
have forgotten.
He's yelling.
No. How quick have you forgotten two playoff seasons ago against TCU?
I wouldn't be bragging about that game
We all
because I knew that's the game you were going to go to, because he kept both teams in the game. Me and Reg called those type of guys Turnover Thompson, because he kept both teams in the game.
Okay. He threw 2 pick sixes. Congratulations, Kev.
That's 14 points. Imagine if you don't give them 14 points.
And a loss to TCU.
And Michigan lost by 5.
That means they win. What are you talking about? He doesn't throw two pick sixes, they win.
Yards. Okay, that game you're talking about, with Chad Henne, did they win that game?
No, it wasn't his fault. It was the defense fault because Troy Smith went buck noodles.
No.
Yes. If you want to play that game, the reason that Michigan lost that game was because of JJ.
Was the Zebras.
Oh, you're one of them.
Oh, where is it? You want it? You got it.
The Sean Crable hit was out of bounds. Come on, dude.
All three.
Come on, dude. The Roman Wilson catch wasn't in the end zone.
Go
Come
Steelers.
on, dude. Come on, dude.
The one that I will definitely agree with you on the very last play when the tight end, I think was the tight end or the wide receiver, got speared in the back and there was no flag. Like that was ridiculous.
That game was already over at that point.
But you can't do that like for player safety and just for the intent of the game. I was watching, it wasn't last night. Was it last night? I think it was last night. No, 2 nights ago. The Mavs and the T-Wolves Western Conference Championship game. They replayed something. It was 0.2 seconds left on the clock. They played out the last 2 seconds of the game, even though the game was in hand, because you have to do that. You have to throw the flag on that play, no matter what. And it was a 5-point game. So a Hail Mary, Michigan could have won. You have to play the things out the right way. If it's a penalty, it's a penalty. Dude got speared in the back. It should have been a 15-yard penalty. Y'all could have one more shot at it.
Unless it's the women's Final Four. And
real quick, because you guys brought it up right before I came on.
You make it real quick.
The reason UD will not play Wright State is they want to play the card, help me, I'm poor. That's why UD will not play Wright State. UD is a bunch of cowards. They're scared, and that's why they won't play Wright State. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of them playing Northern Kentucky and every other team from the horizon. But, we couldn't figure out how to schedule Wright State. Please, grow a pair and actually schedule them. I'm out. Go Blue, national champions. And
I know we got to go to break, and I'll probably talk to you about this off the air. But what does he mean by they want to cry poor? I don't understand what that means.
Part I didn't pick up on, or I heard him say that, but they're not crying poor. What they're trying to hide behind, and Neil Sullivan, as much as I criticize them, Neil Sullivan does a good job building a non-conference schedule. He does a great job building a non-conference schedule as far as getting them to Maui, getting them to these invitationals. He's done a good job. He's gotten the Auburns and he's gotten these bigger name schools to be able to come play at UD Arena. What I've always been critical of Neil Sullivan on in the past is when he has said things that are very, evergreen. He says evergreen comments. Like every AD in the history of the world can say exactly what he says, and he tries to make it sound like it's just an isolated situation at Dayton. No one wants to come play at UD Arena. Yeah, and Kentucky's just knocking on the door at the Nutter Center to go play there. Stop acting like it's a special program that no one wants to come play us here. They don't want to play there because you're mid-major. You're in the A10. Kentucky's not going to go play at an A10 school. All right, that's why it's rare. When Auburn did it, it was rare that Auburn would do that. It's that's why you're getting more of the St. Mary's. You're getting some of those games scheduled because those are more like-minded type of programs. Not bad games to put on the schedule. But I just don't like when he tries to cry those excuses as if those are isolated things that every other mid-major program out there. If Dayton gets to the Big East, I guarantee you they get significantly better games in the non-con, that type of thing. From what we talked about with who do we just have on? I've mentioned his name a few times already. We had him on last week, earlier in the week, from ESPN, Dan Murphy, about all this stuff too. This is why it's also a problem for Dayton being in the A10. They have to get to the Big East. They have to get a bigger pool of money coming in because of the fact that you look at what I think it's less than $1 million that they're getting from the A10 for their TV deal. You'll be getting millions from Big East money from those TV deals. And when you talk about the fact that you could spend up to 20, Dayton, could they spend up to 20 million? Probably not. The chances of them being able to spend a significant amount of money, they wouldn't have to. They could do that as a basketball school in the Big East. They could spend a lot of money. They'd be very successful in that at that point. But where's that money coming from?
Right.
They are a loaded, again, they're private, so they don't have to just, disclose all the money that they have and everything like that. The scheduling aspect, to go back to that, Neil Sullivan does a good job building it. He still does it in a cowardly way, though, because he still hides from that team here in town, because instead of being an AD that has power that can make it happen, he's listening to the donors. He's listening to give them the AD title. Let them say that they're the athletic director then if they're the ones running it, because everything I hear is that there are certain donors in town that will refuse to continue to pay money if that matchup happens. They want to monopolize the area. They want to make sure. I don't think anyone here thinks that Wright State has a shot to take over the city as the face of the basketball college program here. I've said that Wright State can go on a magical Cinderella run to the Final Four, get off the bus, come back, and there'll still be people wearing UD stuff everywhere. That's not a shot at Wright State. That's just the reality of it. There's not a single person at Wright State that is delusional enough to think that they're going to take over this city. I'm sorry, that they're going to take over this city. But again, that just shows you how soft that program is when it comes to that they're actually that worried about that. That's what's wild.
I'm going to go lightning round. There's a ton of private schools in the Big East already. Obviously, you got Providence, you got St. John's, you got Seton Hall, you got Georgetown, all that type of stuff. So they would absolutely be a fit. The thing about the AD, if the boosters are refusing to give money if they play Wright State, if I want to emphasize, if that's the case, I don't see anything differently what he's doing than what Roger Goodell does with the NFL, because Roger Goodell works for the owners. He will be working for the boosters, right? Mm-hmm. So he's basically, hey, man, you got to keep the people with the money happy. So if that's the case, then, I would not direct my anger at him. I would direct my anger at the people with the money.
1,000,000%. Because his job is to manage that situation right there. His job is to manage, and like from a business perspective, and like to look at them across the table and say, guys, why are we being petty here? For instance, when you had the shooting at the Oregon District, there was a perfect opportunity to do some kind of charity situation between those two schools, and they didn't do it. The tornadoes, they wouldn't do it. And I'm saying this on it with a live mic. I know for a fact they were approached by that particular green and gold school to do something, and they said no. So that's the problem I have. You had to have Duquesne and West Virginia when Bob Huggins was there. Did you know that Bob Huggins and Duquesne did a charity basketball game for the city of Dayton because the face of the entire city wouldn't do it? That's a problem. That I have a problem with. Dayton finally started doing the charity exhibition game with Ohio State, and that's great. And I that especially with the month that we're in too and everything like that. And I make it like that's a great, situation to play for, all that fun stuff. I get that. But yeah, I've had major problems. There's been plenty of opportunities to let that game happen. But no, if I wasn't so passionate about it, you are right. Yes, you kind of have to, if they threaten to pull the money, you can't, you're kind of, backs against the wall. But at that point, be an athletic director or just let them run your program. And that's basically what's happening at this point. So yes, I'm a little frustrated. And by the way, Ryan Roth, when he said that, Ryan Roth said that they want the payday, he meant that Wright State was crying money. No, I actually know that's not the case. Wright State would not be getting as much money as you guys think. It would be a pay. Dayton wants to pay them.
Right.
They want the home and home. It's not a paydays type of situation. And to be fair to Wright State, and to be fair to Wright State, and I'm going to be honest, I don't think, and I love Wright State, the home and home probably isn't realistic. You probably have to go to UD twice to get the one at the Nutter, and I'm fine with that. That's the other thing too. This idea that UD has to go to Wright State to play. If it's a one-off at UD Arena, it's a one-off at UD Arena. It is what it is.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. I would definitely recommend that. Like, hey, if it's just has to be there, if it has to be there in perpetuity, okay.
Yep.
Okay. And you do 5 for 1. I'm good with it.
And I've also been told that has not been the problem either. Where it's played has also not been a problem as far as that's concerned. Ryan Roth also says, "Oh, they need it though. They are struggling financially." And this goes back to what we were talking about with the players earlier, that, man, they only went to Ohio State because they're getting paid. This idea that Dayton's the only school that could pay them. Dayton's worried about their own money right now. That's why they're trying to desperately get out of the A-10, especially with what just happened. We talked about that, with all that stuff. So this is a derailed hour, by the way. It's a derailed hour. It is what it is. It's our Friday. It's Friday, but it's Thursday. I get that, people, but we're off tomorrow, so we're treating it to Friday. So is
off the air, not off from work.
I might be off the air for a lot of reasons, but anyways, Kinner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Oh, a verdict just came down.
Oh, nice. Let me guess. Scheffler?
Yeah. That'll do.
Is Scheffler going to jail or what's happening? Give us an update on Scheffler. Kev.
We haven't had anything yet. It just said they have announced a verdict. I have not
So-
seen anything.
On the Scheffler case, right? Because we're sticking to sports.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
Your weather forecast.
Make sure you've liked and followed the Justin Kinner Show on Facebook. Enter a contest. Weigh in on the latest sports debates. Plus, you can watch Kinner and Kev weekdays at 3 p.m. Yeah, as if listening to them isn't bad enough. Now you can see them. Reds, Bengals, Browns, Buckeyes, and more. Follow the Justin Kinner Show on Facebook. Don't miss Kinner and Kev. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio. Buckeye fans, don't miss Dayton's own Keith Byers every Wednesday at noon on The Keith Byers Show. Presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken.